Um,
Uh,
yeah, so kind of the goal for today is first, I'm going to walk you through a bit of a cohort analysis around your feedback that you got. So, as a reminder, everyone over the course of the last 3 months, 2 months, however many months it was, might have been a year, I don't know, that we were not meeting, has gone out and interviewed 100 potential customers. You've gone out and you've interviewed people about what your business is, who they are, and now I'm going to walk you through an example I completely made up for the purposes of this, of what that might look like from an analysis standpoint. And I'm just going to be doing this in Excel. You can also do it in Google Sheets. Um, and if anybody after this has access to Tableau and wants me to run it through that, we can do that as well. Because I have that here as well. So going into this, so that's today. And then we're going to have Jenna Gartua,
oh,
who
James, you might
is
have
this.
frozen for a second.
Did I freeze? That's cool.
No, we can still hear you. I think it might
Awesome.
be, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have Jenna Gartua, who is the CSO, co-founder at.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's James. I can hear him pretty clearly. It might be your internet.
I think it's you, Carl. Might be Carl. CSO, co-founder, Go Nimbly. The consultancy I was working at last year. She's an awesome speaker. She's going to talk to us about what starting a business, building a business, what to look for, all of the things that we need to be aware of as we go into these last stages before we put it all together and pitch. And then we're going to have RJ Wafer, who I've known for almost a decade, and he is the CRO at an exercise company. He literally just started there. Super proud of him on that because it's a really cool business and it's a cool product. And he is going to speak about what it's like when you're at zero. What are all the things you need to have to get going, to build, to scale? And he's an expert in this because he specializes in pre-revenue product companies that are building things that are going to be sold. Like he's done VR, crypto, 3D printing, now exercise equipment, and consulted with a bunch of different companies around everything from, well, he was the CRO at Double Robotics. Like he's been around the block in terms of what it takes to get a business from zero all the way up. So he's going to be here at 2. And then at next time, for those who aren't familiar, well, everyone's not familiar, we're going to be doing deep dive into finance and actually diving into the numbers and what it's going to cost you to get your business up and running. And then from there, you should be ready to jump into the pitches, at which point you're going to have 1 month to refine, build, create, and pitch Cody and I. And then we're going to work with you to take that feedback and translate into the final pitch competition in April. So diving in here. So I want to found a dog walking company in New York. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, all right, I need to figure out how possiibly profitable could this company be? Where's the best place for me to start? So I'm in New York. I'm looking in New York. Is New York the best place? What are people's salaries? What do they actually need a dog walker if they have dogs? And what would it possibly cost me to be a dog walker? So I went out and I interviewed, in my fictional world, 100 people. And in those 100 people, each of them gave me different responses for household earnings, how many people are living in home, working in the home, feel like they have time to walk a dog, likes the walking options that are available to them, i.e. already has a dog walker, feels like they're great. How much are they willing to spend on a walk per week? How often do they need the walkers per day? And how many days a week do they need the dog walked? Basically, what are the things that they're going to need from me as a dog walker to really grow my business? So thinking about that, I'm going to come here and say, okay, what are my actual costs for walking a dog? Does anyone here who owns a dog, can someone tell me how long you need to walk a dog?
At least 30 minutes, I guess.
30 minutes? All right. So we're going to say 0.5 because we're just going to be simple and say it's hourly. And how much would you say you would pay a dog walker? And this is a point where I'm going to say we're going to do a thing that we fondly like to call base jumping, which is a tactic I learned at Go Nimbly from Jen. And it is the idea, I know I'm looking at real estate, ignore that. So how much would you pay? So dog walkers charge an average of $20 per 30-minute walk. So if you were someone looking to start walking a dog, see that? Let's look. Does everybody kind of around that? 10 to 20. All right, sure. We'll say $20, 15 to 20. All right. $575 a week. $10 and £10. All right. So look at this. So dog walker per hour, $20. So price per walk. All right, $10 per walk is what we're paying. So let's come here to our responses.
James, sorry to interrupt. Isn't it
Yeah.
$20 for a half hour? So wouldn't it be like $40 an hour?
Oh, you're right, actually. That's very good. All right, cool. $40, $20 an hour. These numbers are going to be wrong, so we're just going to, do. And so don't do this with your survey. How much would you be willing to pay? So here we'll filter. Now we're going to say, actually, let's remove this filter because we need to figure out what's a thing that we would need to figure out if we were actually going to be profitable, knowing that we have how much they would be willing to pay per week and how often they would need the walkers, how many dog walks do they need a day, how many days a week do they need a dog walker, and how much they'd be willing to pay. With knowing that we have this information, what is important for us to figure out whether we'd be profitable doing this?
Well, we need to know how much does it cost for us to have someone walk the dog.
Yep, exactly. So cost to us equals that divided by that times that. Okay. So now we know that our cost for walking a dog are $20 per walk. So we can come here and say greater than or equal to 20. Okay, this is going to filter those out. Now, what's another thing that would be important to know for people who were looking to be a dog, or for people we'd want to be customers? What's an important part?
Is it a one-to-one relationship, dog to walker, or will the walker have multiple dogs?
The walker will have multiple dogs.
That's where the profit comes in.
Yeah.
Location?
Location is very important. But what's more important before that? I'm going to guess that they like dogs. So
What if someone wants you to walk their dog more than a half hour?
that, if they do, that's an additional charge. So what I'm saying is, as a baseline, for my questionnaire, for the purpose of my questionnaire, that is a great additional question. Purposes of my questionnaire, I did not add that into the sample, but that is a good thing that I would ask as well.
Great. But you're just focusing on that established baseline of the half-hour model and the $20 for the, okay, got it.
So pay per walk.
So does everybody listening understand like why James is doing this? Like there's no such thing as a bad question. I know that Zoom can be like a weirder format to ask questions than like in person, but we'd love to hear if this is like resonating or not. And if it's not, that's totally cool. Just like ask questions, please.
Yeah, another part of this, and pardon my the vulgarity of this statement, but a former boss of mine said it's easier to sell crack than briefcases, and the point of that is that it's better to have a product that's sticky. So I asked some questions regarding how much they need the product. How important is it going to be for them to have this product? And the answer is, like, if they feel like they have time to walk the dog, they're going to be less likely to pay for a service. Like, because if they feel like they have time to walk a dog, they definitely have time to walk a dog. And at which point we say, likes walking options available to them. We don't necessarily want people. So out of my sample of people, I'm funneled down to these 7. Now, let's say they like walking dog is not necessarily a thing that we're going to say is complete disqualifier. So we'll come here, and this is going to be our starting data. So this is what we're going to use. So we're going to say, okay, take this, insert a pivot table, and move y'all. All right. So power of 1. Does anybody know what power of 1 is? It's literally just putting 1 against any function, and it makes counting super easy. So you just make one property 1, and you can do this in any database. And the moment you have a count of that versus another, you'll always end up having a true sum that works. Likes dogs, we already accounted for. Let's put cities in the rows. And let's say pay per walk into here. And we're going to want that to be, come on, computer. There we go. An average. Okay. And then we're going to say, what are some things that we can rule out knowing these things? Knowing what we know. So for me, I'm thinking people with a higher household income are more likely to stick with a paid service. So looking at which of these geographies is going to be stickiest, So all of these average of household earnings for the people that I interviewed, how is that even possible? Well, San Francisco, that's why. But the moment I do that, it looks pretty clear here, right? Which geography is best? While San Francisco, we have a high average pay per walk. It's literally a person with a household earnings of $204,000. New York, I've got 6 respondents who fit what we're looking for. And we can say, all right, likes walking options available to them. We can also throw that in here in the filter. All right, and we'll say get rid of blanks because that's always going to show null value. And then there we go. All right, cool. Thanks. Great. So when we look at this, I'm gonna actually put it here. Okay. So we have, when we look at likes walking options available to them, even so San Francisco, we have that one person, they like the walking options available to them. LA, higher. So what I would do if I were looking to expand, I would put LA as expansion possible. New York, this feels, based on my 100 randomized responses, this feels like this is a good market, because the reality is, if these 6 people live in proximity to one another, if I can get them into proximity to one another and we can walk 3 dogs at a time, that divided by, where's my pivot? Oh, there's my pivot. Divided by, my COGS are 18% in this area. So this area would be profitable.
Now you're assuming that you're not paying an additional fee to the walker for each additional dog.
You know what? You're absolutely right. So I'm going to go on the kids model because I recently went through this. So in general, with like a nanny, you pay $4 for every additional kid. So we're going to say per additional dog, $4. So 3 additional dogs. Is going to be 12.
But wouldn't the additional dogs be coming from different people? As opposed to the same person having 4 dogs, wouldn't you be trying to overlap different people's dogs?
Yes. You're very right. So I see this is why we have
this is great, guys. Great points you're making.
So if we're doing times 3 dogs, it's times 3 households, 316. At which point we're saying we're going to be paying, and we're just going to tack that $12 onto the price per walk, because at this point, why not? All right, divided by, and we're going to say cost walking a dog. Which line is that? G. We just got more profitable. And so if they're willing to pay at this level, we have this is our ceiling. So we can actually price a number of options within this So we can say, want a solo dog walker, want that. And now I can go out taking the demographic information for New York City. And I can look and say, okay, where are the people like this in New York? Now, New York, we ended up having a pretty high household earnings across the board. And I tried to randomize that completely. We have lots of people living in the home, on average, 2 people working in the home. And then, so this actually feels like a really good market for us. So at this point, what I would do is I'd center down on New York City and do an entire another survey of New York to find where New York should I start up. So if all of these people, if we're like Brooklyn, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and then it's figuring out, okay, how many of these people live within walking distance of each other? How many of these people live a mile away from each other? So taking and figuring out, okay, what area of Brooklyn am I going to go expand into, and find the exact area where I can start that's going to maximize my profitability. And then I can actually look to the rest of New York based on my survey and say, okay, I'm going to start off in Prospect Lefferts in Brooklyn. And then my expansion market would be Astoria. And then the next most profitable place is going to be Bed-Stuy. And we can continue to look out and expand this at more and more granular levels for every neighborhood, and truly find a target market and then advertise to those people or market to those people. And the smaller your area, it's finding the smallest area we can within our potential demographic group that is going to drive value for our business long term. So if we're saying that we want to get our first 100 customers using this model, it's pretty easy once we get down to New York, funneling down into potential options of neighborhoods, potential options of spaces, and finding those 100 customers. Because once we get down to an area like Prospect Lefferts, there's a cheesecake company that started up in the middle of the pandemic in my neighborhood. I don't know how they did it, but they're getting their own retail store, and they started out just putting flyers on mailboxes. Never seen anybody put a flyer on a mailbox and for cheesecake, but it happened, and I've been seeing it. And now they have opening a retail front, and they did this all in the pandemic out of sheer work, going out and putting leaflets up. So finding a small enough area that you can dominate means you'll be able to find those first 100 customers. And as we saw here, a first 100 customers could actually be pretty profitable. So
I have a question, James.
Yeah.
So we have the same concern doing our survey as well. Is that when we're reaching out to people, like it's not like we can reach out to same amount of people in each area. So I wonder, for your example here, do you have, like, I mean, say each city, do you have the same amount of people so that your data is a little more a little more accurate?
You try. Honestly, I tried with this as well, but it's never going to be 100% because you're never going to get the same response rate. Start out with the goal of reaching out to the same number of people, and you're going to have differing response rates. Get to a point where you're significant in any one area, and then you can break it down. And significance is 30, by the way. When I say significant, it means a sample size of 30. Because a less than 30 is just somewhat difficult. So this, while this is leaning towards it, it's the reason I said I need to do further survey, because I need to get a statistically significant number of people in New York.
So just to let everyone know, like James is giving you an example of how he would go about if he was starting this dog walking business. And so then when he was pitching, when you are all pitching and an investor or a pitch judge might ask you, how did you get your numbers? Then you can actually like substantially back it up and say, I went through this type of process. This is one example. James is fantastic at meeting with you. He's in the past, he's helped people like answering these type of questions. So if you feel like a little bit lost, it's okay. This is just to give you like a starting point, and then you can take a stab at it. James, correct me if you have anything to add to that. And then also I want to give you the half-hour warning to make sure that we have time to hear from other people about how their homework went.
Yeah. So to that end, yeah, this is an example, and I'm happy to meet with every group here independently. I can't do a lot of time, and I might bunch you together, but I'm happy to meet with everyone. And I want to get you to a point where you're comfortable with your numbers and you can actually do a true bottoms up analysis, which is what this is called. It's finding your smallest common denominator of a market, figuring out how much of that market you can capture, and then building a model for growth based upon that. So if we start in prospect efforts, and we can realistically get 10 dog walking customers in prospect efforts, but we know in Crown Heights, if I can spell, there are another five customers. Well, these two are 2 miles apart from each other. So the reality is you could do a morning, afternoon. So like this dog walk could happen at 1, 2, and you could alternate hours here. Maybe you can start in both areas. It's like figuring out where these centers of interest are and building out is a great way to say, okay, I can realistically expect around, it's going to be like $5,000 a week in revenue from this area. If I can get 10 people, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be, you can actually expand that out and figure out, okay, what is my true revenue going to be? What am I looking at long term? And what are the tiers of my pricing? All of those things. This is your baseline for how you're going to establish your pricing. And then your next survey, when you go in here, you go, okay, what are some of the limits? Like if someone came to you and asked you to spend $250 a week on dog walking services, would you be open to that? Or if we were charging $30, $35 a walk, would you be open to that? And asking much more targeted questions. So not only using this as a means of finding the market, but also using this as a means of refining your questions. Does that make sense, everyone? Does anyone have questions?
James.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I wanted to, I was wondering if I either can put you on the spot or I'm happy to take the spot. You mentioned base jumping, but you didn't quite explain what base jumping is. And I think it's obviously a wonderful concept. But was wanting to encourage you to maybe double down on that.
Yeah, so base jumping is what I do and what I recommend everyone does. The moment you're asked for things, we've all been in a meeting or a class and had someone come up to us and go, what can you tell me about X? What can you tell me about pterosaurs? I don't know anything about pterosaurs. How am I going to tell you what a pterosaur was, how much it ate, all of that stuff? We went to the American Museum of Natural History with my daughter last weekend, so I'm all about the dinosaurs right now. Anyway, so what are some things that you're going to do? Well, with base jumping, it's actually a framework that we can use to dive in and figure out, okay, what is a pterosaur? What are the important things to know about a pterosaur? How do we further our research into pterosaurs? How do we answer this question? So if someone were to ask you, what does a pterosaur eat? You could go using this framework and in minutes come up with a reasonable answer. Now, you'll notice when I was doing the dog walking search, sure, I looked at the first answer that popped up, but then I kept looking at more and more because, as we all know, on the internet, anyone can say whatever they want. And so the principle of base jumping is when you find something, get to a reasonable level of confidence around what your answer is. Go look up so if someone were to ask you, how do I implement a validation rule in Salesforce? Most people would say, I don't know off the top of their head. But you could go look up how do I implement a validation rule in Salesforce? Pull up the first 5 articles, read them, see, okay, what are the best practices within those articles? What are the commonalities? How do each of them align around what that is? And then when you go back and give the answer of how do you create a validation rule in Salesforce, you're coming not from a place of zero knowledge, but from a place where you can say, with the general level of certainty, here are the steps, here's how I would do it, and here's how I've read other people doing it. And you'll be able to do all of that utilizing this base jumping framework.
And if I can take it like a 10,000 foot view, the problem you're solving for is time, right? If we all had all the time in the world, we could learn anything, right? We have growth mindsets. We know that if we put ourselves to something, we'll figure it out. The whole thing that base jumping is solving is like, I don't have all the time in the world, and it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole and spend 6 hours trying to find the answer to something. So how can we limit ourselves to a point of being like, hey, I'm reasonably confident that I can move forward with this amount of information? And the real key thing is like, you have to define what you're looking for. What is the question that you're answering? James's, questions were a lot easier than what you probably are going to get in real life, right? Which is how, like, go figure out 1, 2, 3. And now the biggest thing that you can do is understand your gap. What's the thing you don't know? And research that until you've got enough information to move forward. And that ability to unblock yourself, it's one of the biggest things that we look for when we recruit. It's, do you have an ability not just to be comfortable in ambiguity, but to base jump? So when I give you something you don't have enough information about, you're not frozen and you're not like stopping in your tracks, that you're very capable of researching yourself out of ambiguity.
Yeah.
Love it. And James, just to give you a warning, we have 20 minutes. So now's probably the good time to hear from folks about how they're doing.
Yeah. So real quick, I know we said 1 minute, but we have 20 minutes and there are more than 20 of you. Everyone, 30 seconds. How did it go? What did you learn? What did you learn? How did your research go? And what's a big challenge you faced while doing it? And someone volunteer and go. Anyone?
We can go.
All right. I'm pumped.
30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay, so it went pretty well. First, some people misread our name as the garbage app, so we thought we could capitalize the word grab to make it like grabbage. Another problem was that our app might actually promote the production of garbage, since people can create more waste to get more points. Our solution is to first make special trash cans with fixed openings to prevent house trash. Next, we set a limit on how many times a user can earn points per day. Also, to make sure what is thrown is actually garbage, we can add an AI detector that takes a picture when trash is thrown randomly and shut down the garbage bin when needed.
And
was-
how did your survey go?
The survey went okay. Those were like some of the concerns that the people had when we asked the question, like, would this like help improve your daily life? Like, would you use it and stuff? Yeah.
And do you feel like you were able to get valid next steps off of your survey?
Yeah, I think for the next step, we should like focus on the budget for, the trash can and stuff. Cause
So, yeah, of the people that you interviewed, how many do you think would be interested in buying?
a lot of them actually.
Yeah, we got 50 people, and then a lot of people were asking because our idea was an app, and they're like, "Where can I download this app?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just a concept right now." So a lot of people are interested.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So yeah, it sounds like next step is going to be budgeting and figuring out what do we do around that. That's really good. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you.
And James, do you want people to remind us, like very briefly, what their product is, or do you want to just focus on how they're processing the results?
I want to focus on how they're processing the results, and then we can dig into everything a little bit more as we go. I just want to make sure that we're getting high level like next steps based on like you saw with the way my questions went along those lines. Awesome.
Second Skin is ready to talk.
All right, get out there.
Am I unable to share my screen?
We do have it disabled currently, but
Okay,
I
no
don't know
problem.
I can make you right now so that you're a co-host, and then you can do it. So maybe someone else go while I'm making you co-host. Is that okay?
No worries, that's fine.
Okay. So who wants to go next, and then you can go right after.
We can go.
All right.
Okay, so based on our research interviewed and recently from the survey, which we based on 3 major goals: sustainability, people that interested in toy, and consumer behavior. Now we are focused on the toy industry, specifically to kids toy, because the toy industry is one of the most plastic intensive industry globally. It contributes pollutions and cause environmental harms. So kids toy, which require a lot of health and safety concern, is best benefit out here. Like for us, due to the property of bagasse, it has potential to be one of the best alternative materials. And from the survey, we found that parents are concerned about the toxicity of toys, and it is increasing consistency. Yep.
Awesome. And bagasse was the sugar cane.
Yep, it's the residue from sugarcane.
Yeah, that I'm excited about that. Awesome. And kind of, so what is your biggest challenge going forward?
For now, right? It's like how to enter the industry, then how can we prove it?
So how to be competitive in the industry.
Yep. Like it's not quite the existing product right now on the toy area from bagasse.
Right. Okay. Cool. So it's going to be, how do we make it sticky? How do we make it viable? And how do we get people using it and selling it? I would ask RJ about that when he jumps in. He's actually very familiar with taking very non-sticky products and making
James,
them
can
sticky.
in case there's one person out of like the almost 30 people here that doesn't know what you mean by make it sticky, we can figure it out from context, but could you spell it out for us real quickly since you say it so much? It's a great term, by the way.
So if I hand you a thing, I want you to not, and that's the thing I'm selling. I want you to be so addicted the moment you touch it that you don't want to give it back. I want it to literally stick to you. I want you to carry it around like a 19-month-old with their favorite blanket. Like that's what I want. I want you to need it and continue to use it. And that's what we mean by make it sticky. Like, we want this to be such an integral part that when you hand someone a Bagasse toy, their kid is just like, oh my gosh, and runs away with it. And then they're like, I guess I gotta buy it now. Like, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, Second Skin, are you ready to screen share? And we'll start the 30 seconds when the screen is shared.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the window I'm trying to share here.
Do you see the option, the green screen share at the bottom?
Yeah, I've clicked that, and let's see, screen. Okay, here we go. Can everybody see this slideshow?
Gotcha.
So we were fortunate in that we had access to a list of individuals who actually own reusable face masks, and that's our target market. 50 responded to our survey, and again, all of them wear masks whenever they leave home. Their primary reason is to prevent personal infection. Virtually all of them carry hand sanitizer. Those few that don't use the publicly available hand sanitizer stations. Most importantly, half of respondents accepted the product we described and that they would purchase it if it were available, pay even more money than masks. And since masks is forecast to grow to a $7 billion industry worldwide by 2027, that imputes a good opportunity for us to hit that universe of $3 billion out there that would go a step further. So armed with that information, we've gone forward with design and developing prototypes and with establishing relationships. We have a principal supplier who has made fabric available to us for our prototypes. They also produce a branded antiviral topical application that's applied to the product during manufacturing. And there's co-branding opportunities available should we use their product. We've also developed a relationship with a manufacturer with multiple factories based in Asia. They not only give us an opportunity to develop our prototypes and samples at a very reasonable or no cost, but they also potentially open up the Asian markets to us. So with
Awesome.
that, also got some other partners we're thinking about, but this is the progress we've made so far.
That's great. I think I like seeing this. I want to see. So it sounds good that you have the co-marketing opportunities and all of that. I think it would be good to dig into channel a bit more. Because
next step.
Yeah, it's like this. It sounds like your supply chain is great. You got the product that people want. It's just getting it to them in a way that's viable. So I think we can work on that. That's good. Thank you for the update. That was really good.
Thank you. How do I throw it back to you?
Just stop share.
Okay.
You just press the end screen share at the top.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's minimized my. Oh, there it is. Stop share. Gotcha. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Who's next?
We can go.
All right.
Hi, so I'm with Anishwar and Kiki, and we really shifted our concept over the winter break, thinking more towards a sort of B2B design firm that would help hospitality firms that want to expand in new areas by connecting them into local networks of young designers and community members. So for our interview, we reached out to almost 100 people who consider themselves travelers, and 9 out of 10 of them said that they'd be willing to pay more to stay in sustainable or eco-friendly hotels, and more than half the respondents said that they would be willing to pay 5 to 15% more than normal for this kind of hotel. And a quarter of people said they'd be willing to pay up to 30% more. So our hospitality clients would be able to charge their customers more and have a higher client retention rate, especially because 95% of the people that we talked to said they'd be loyal to brands that reflect the values of being environmentally conscious, culturally informed, and community connected, which tapping into these local networks would allow us to do with the design plans for these firms. So a big challenge moving forward is that we want to reach out to the actual hospitality firms who would be our real clients rather than the travelers that would stay with them. But at first we wanted to, really see whether this was a viable market we would be able to pitch, basically.
Awesome. Cool. And then, so then I think a tack on to your next stage of challenge is going to be serviceable area. So you're working with these hospitality firms. It's going to be, I've worked in hospitality. It's going to be needed that someone's able to show up at the location if there are issues. And so making sure that you actually can service the area or you have a plan for that is going to be critical at the next step.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's awesome. All right. Who wants to jump in? Come on. It's not.
I can jump in next.
All right.
Yeah. So mine is the outdoor apparel brand for like youth in New England. And the first found-in that I got from my survey was that most of the people I interviewed would not consider spending over $100 on a single piece of clothing, like regardless of whether it was a coat. They would rather go, they said their alternative would to just go to a thrift store. And so that kind of gives me an idea of like what products we should develop and in what price ranges we should aim for. The second is that they'd feel most inclined to buy if they had low or no cost physical ways to interact with the brand. So that could be like pop-up shops, other events, and like zines was one they kept coming back to, just physical things they could buy before making a larger financial commitment. And then 3 is they all felt they would be more inclined if there was content around what individual pieces mean and more of what the story of the brand is. So they really wanted to have more than just clothing to interact with. They wanted to have like a more whole experience with the brand as a whole.
So it sounds like you are you have a lot of storytelling that you need to get building on. And then also one thing that I think will be a challenge is if you're doing research-based storytelling, it's staying authentic in that process. Because a lot of times what you end up with is very PR-ish language that sounds like a robot wrote it.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of companies that are able to successfully do content marketing, but don't come across like that. And one of the ones I keep coming back to is Patagonia, and how they're able to sponsor a lot of filmmakers and just be their name being on like the beginning title card and then never being mentioned through again. Like that adds to the reputation of the brand. So I'm thinking that possibly getting involved with like youth filmmakers, like youth outdoorsmen who are operating in New England or even just outdoor trips, like day trips that are happening there, maybe getting in with them and having equipment sponsors through the brand could help build that reputation.
It sounds like you need to do a second survey.
Yeah, there was a lot I need to take into account, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Those are good findings. I think that's really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. All right. I'm looking at a bunch of squares. Someone go.
Who's next, guys? You guys are all doing great. It's not a competition. It's just for everyone to learn. So don't worry if about anything. Let's just learn together. Just tell us what you're discovering so far.
Silence. Someone go. All right. We have noted who has gone. All right. Brandon, you jumping in? I see you on.
Yeah, hey there. Just texting my partner. We're organizing our thoughts. I can get started here. Quick reminder: we're offering a cooperative motorcycle garage for motorcycle enthusiasts who need more space. We had positive feedback from almost everyone we talked to. Notably, we learned that there's a strong desire for cheaper, larger motorcycle space than what's offered in the city now. We've realized that our biggest challenge moving forward is to prove our concept without significant financial commitment, such as a lease or something like that.
Cool. And how's it going? I'm Luke. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so then we also found that it's going to be difficult to start up without further validation from the market. Proximity is kind of what we're trying to sell. So we're trying to like be proximity to a train line and proximity to nice suburban roads. So we got a lot of feedback from like one of our like main business kind of mentors is our professor who has a similar business that he's running right now. And he's saying it's basically breaking even and it's a hard path with like little profits because motorcycles are more of like a luxury or like toy item. They're not really like, it's hard to discover where the market exists when you have a motorcycle and like what kind of things people need to like purchase and fulfill. So, yeah, and I guess our refocusing is kind of like what we've been doing in the last like over winter break is we're kind of thinking more about like what we want to do, and we're kind of more interested in like motorcycle design and custom fabrication and possible like building connections with like EV bike manufacturers in Asia and creating like a motorcycle depot in the Hudson Valley or New York, or just trying to build a network is kind of, I think, where our refocusing has kind of been. But
Awesome. That's good. So it just sounds like you need to choose a few geographies and really establish the market there, as it were. And like maybe do a larger survey of a region of New York and then use that to funnel down, almost like my dog walking model, actually. And that could be a useful way to zero in on the exact location you should be.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We've we've got like a couple personal like anecdote stories, like they're kind of small. I mean, like when we were talking to our professor, his wife was saying how like her father, who was like in his 80s, like 75, 80, he's always looking for an opportunity to teach some like younger motorcycle enthusiast about like some specific repair technique. So like there's definitely like a network that can be created, and it's about kind of making those relationships and like making, I guess, like a space for that. I mean, we're kind of back and forth on our like where our focus is primarily.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind that I would think about asking someone is, you're probably doing this, but is how far they'd be willing to travel for your experience. And then that can help you, when you're doing your math, use a kind of zero in on the perimeter of the location.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. With that, we have reached the hour. If everyone wants to take 2 minutes, go be yourself for 2 minutes and then come back.
I'm gonna start promptly at 101 because I have little breaks for you guys in the middle. So I'm gonna start on time. So go pee fast.
Yeah. It's a good slide, Jen.
All right.
Oh, looks like she's starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know the rules here, but if you want to turn your
I wrote
camera
down
on.
all the feedback.
What's that?
Brandon, turn off your speaker.
Yeah, no sweat. It's just good to get something out. I'm glad we talked and didn't just let it slip by.
Brandon, mute yourself.
I just muted him. I got the power. Awesome. You guys can hear me all right? Life is good. Thumbs up. Cool. If you want to turn on your camera, not against it. It's nice to see faces when you're talking to other humans. So if your internet is good and you are willing, I would be ever so thankful. This is not a competition, but 10 points for turning on your video camera. Sweet. So I want to talk to you guys about two big topics. Okay, so the first kind of thing that is really a methodology that you can take to make your business better is gap first thinking. So I'm going to talk about that. But before I go into that, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about imposter syndrome, which is maybe something that you're feeling. And it's perfectly normal. In fact, if you've never felt imposter syndrome, I would love for you to go see a therapist ASAP because there's something wrong with you. Imposter syndrome is perfectly natural. You're going to feel it throughout your life and career at different points. And it's really kind of about understanding it and knowing what to do with it. And then I'm going to go into, kind of work mode and get a little less kumbaya with you guys in the second part of this. And we're going to talk about how to identify gaps and get closer to your customers. So a little bit about me. I had I had a huge limiting belief and a really big imposter syndrome around the word entrepreneur. I didn't call myself an entrepreneur until I started 4 businesses. And even like at that point, I really had to coach myself through that. There was a couple things I think entrepreneur is this like big word for any women on this call. I also found it really male. Like for me in my own head, an entrepreneur was a man. And I had like a little bit of like a difficulty really calling myself that. I have 3 male business partners. They had no problem. They talked very confidently about all the things that they've built. So I think there was an added layer for me as a female entrepreneur that it felt just heavier and bigger. And it was kind of silly because I've been making things for a long time. And, from the usual lemonade stand and, picking up leaves and things like that to in middle school and high school, I made jewelry and sold it to all kind of local boutiques in the area. Made great money because my mom would buy all the materials. So that was really fabulous. Really great business model. If you can have somebody else carry all the costs, that's a pro tip. And then in college, I started a lot of groups. So I started a group for, I grew up in Spain. So I really cared about almost kind of helping people that had been abroad or helping incoming exchange students. So created a whole group. Started out as like a little get a buddy type of thing. And then it really blew up. We would have Thanksgiving dinners. We would do trips to DC and it became this, it's still running today, which is really cool to see something that you kind of built running on its own. And then when I started Go Nimbly, obviously, so a consulting company there. I own a game company called Pillbox Games. If you want to buy some games online, pillboxgames.com, you can use promo code PROMOCHODE, which is hilarious, or you can use promo code I know Jen, and you can get some money off. So I've made games. I am part of a bunch of improv groups. So I've just really always loved creating, and it took me, and I'm telling you all this not to brag, it took me reminding myself that I had done all those things to like really solidify this belief that I am a creator and that I can call myself an entrepreneur. And that was like a big journey for me. So I want to talk a little bit about what is a limiting belief. And honestly, I think it's one of the biggest things that can hold people back from going for it. And that's because your beliefs really kind of are going to influence your emotions, which are going to influence your behaviors. And that's really the key, right? It's whatever it is that you do is going to create results. And so really the hypothesis here, or the methodology here, is that we have to change our beliefs in order to really change the outcome or the result. And knowing what it is that's holding you back is sort of the key to cracking that. So, you know, for me, I've already told you the big limiting belief I had was I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not creative enough, or I don't have big ideas. And for me, that kind of triggered a lot of emotions of like feeling like I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't creative enough. It made me feel small and made me feel kind of scared. And that caused me to just not go for it, you know? And so my behavior was I wasn't, you know, or I wasn't advocating for myself enough. I wasn't going as big with my ideas. I wasn't pitching as big. I was always kind of like downsizing the work that I was doing. So like taking smaller bites. And obviously the results of that is I was doing smaller things. Once I was able to flip this, which is the exercise that we're going to do today, I started going bigger. And that's really the big outcome that I had was I was just willing to take bigger risks, tell bigger stories, and have a stronger belief in myself. So with that, what I want you guys to do is grab a pen and paper. It can be small. You're probably going to write 2 sentences. So whatever pad you've kind of got, grab that. And what I want you to do is really sort of, we're going to start with step 1. And what I want you to do is think of one big dream that you have for yourself, like one big thing that you want to accomplish. All right. And what I want you to do is write down what you think is actually keeping you from doing that. What's the limiting belief that's keeping you from doing that? Typically it's I'm not blank enough, or I can't do 1, 2, 3, or I don't have the skills for, you know, I'm not smart enough for, or I've never done X, things like that. Go ahead and write that down. I'll give you 30 seconds to really think about it. And you're not going to share this. So honestly, like whatever you put into this exercise, you get out, dig deep. I'm not going to ask you to share with anyone else but yourself. Great. So now you've got it written down, it might read, you know, I can't start a business, or I don't know how to get funding, or if it's about work, it could be about something completely, you know, it could be like, I don't know how to run a room, or, you know, I'll never be a big speaker, whatever it is that, you know, you're sort of thinking about in a big dream, it's, you know, a sentence like that. So this is just like an exercise for yourself. Start thinking in your head, like, as you're reading this, what emotions are arising? You know, when you believe that. So if it's truly a belief of yours, I'm not blank, or I can't, or whatever it is, what does that make you feel? Is there frustration? Is it fear? Is it nervousness? Is it, you know, a sense of like loss? And then, you know, with those emotions, think about the behaviors that that's causing. Are you showing up in a certain way? Are you maybe not taking the opportunities that are in front of you? Is it holding you back from taking an opportunity that's in front of you? Is it keeping you from speaking up in certain situations? Is it, you know, keeping you from thinking as big? And then finally, what's the outcome? It can be, typically it's a thing that you can't have, right? It's like it's making something smaller or making you not achieve something. But sometimes it can be, you know, it's causing me to stay in the same job. It's, you know, causing me to take opportunities that, you know, are not in line. You know, maybe if you're not willing to take risks, I'm always taking the first opportunity because I'm afraid of losing something else. So whatever that sort of is, you can see that, you know, one core belief can actually keep you from achieving a lot more. So here's the fun part. Take that same belief that you have written on your paper and do the opposite. So, you know, for me, if it was, I'm not entrepreneurial, or I don't have big ideas, the answer is going to be, I am an entrepreneur and I do have big ideas. All right. So it should be like empowering. This belief should be big and feel good. And, you know, what emotions, so again, think through like what emotions like does it come out with? Like how much better do you feel like reading that positive side of it? How do you connect with it? And, you know, here's the fun part. Like, if you truly believe that, how might you show up differently? How might you be taking opportunities that are at your feet? How might you be thinking bigger? How might you be applying yourself differently? And, you know, what kind of outcome? Might you now be CEO of a company? Might you now be making tons of money? Might you be on a stage somewhere, you know, giving a TED talk? Like, what is that thing that now you can achieve by switching that belief? And the second thing I want you to do is read that, or think of it, because you didn't write this one down. Think about that positive belief now, the opposite of your limiting belief, and tell yourself, I'm going to do 30 seconds. It could be good to write down or just, you know, think things through. Think about reasons why it is true. So for me, if it was like, I can't have big ideas, I could think, well, you know, I did change the model of my business. I had that great idea for, you know, marketing our game in a certain way, and start thinking about all the reasons why it's true. So I'm entrepreneurial. I created all these, that was my example. I created all these clubs. I had a business ever since I was young. I, you know, have so much grit that I can get through kind of difficult moments. So start thinking about like the reasons why that, you know, opposite limiting belief is actually true. So really short exercise, right? I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to be able to knock your limiting beliefs in 10 minutes and that, you know, we now can achieve the world. But having that awareness of what's holding you back from maybe achieving something bigger is the thing that I tell any entrepreneur, because I think that's the thing that keeps more people from going for it. There's something that kind of holds you back from taking that next big bite, or, you know, being willing to raise money. There's some kind of fear that keeps you from doing that, that limiting belief that keeps you from doing that. And if you do the work to knock that down, you're only going to achieve more. So let's wrap this up by take that little piece of paper you wrote and let's rip it up. Let's look at us at summer camp together. We're around a fire and we're singing Kumbaya and we are ripping up limiting beliefs. So go ahead and rip up that paper. If there was sound effects, it would, let me do some sound effects. It sounds like, you know, it's too quiet. All right. Look at us, feeling good, being smart, being awesome, creative entrepreneurs. And then I'm gonna hard pivot, okay?
I just want to say that was a beautiful explanation from CBT, from the clinical thing. You probably know this, but CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it was called a healthy cognitive reframe. So you're like taking something that's hindering you, a cognition, and then reframing it in an empowering way. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's so silly that our brains, I always kind of think about, there's two parts of your brain. There's your kind of lizard dumb brain that like keeps you from being awesome and smart, and it's really conquered around safety. It's like always trying to keep you safe and keep you still. And then there's your rider, like your really amazing smart self that can push through that. And sometimes we have to hack our brains to not, you know, keep us in a box and let that smart part of your brain fool the dumb part of your brain. That's one of the ways, right? The lizard brain, safety brain is trying to keep you from taking big risks. It's trying to keep you from doing like crazy things that it thinks are scary and could put you at risk. And you have to have your rider, your smarter self go like, well, stop being a lizard. Like, you're not very smart. Let me flip these limiting beliefs and calm you down. So I very much believe in taking the dumb part of me and tricking it because it can pop up at any minute. Sweet. So I want to like, whatever you guys are doing, whether it's entrepreneurship or you've got something else going on, anytime you sort of have the question about what's hard about blank, what's hard about anything that you're doing, what's hard about starting a business, what's hard about a certain project, what's, you know, hard about achieving any goal. I really kind of think that the key to anybody's success is what you focus on, what you put your time to, and what you like. That's, if you think about any business, The best thing that any business can do to achieve is focus on the right stuff. But figuring out what the right thing is hard, right? But if we all applied ourselves, there's this great book if you read called The One Thing, which is if you can figure out what the one thing that you can do in order to achieve your goal is, then you should just do that one thing, right? You should prioritize the right work to help you move in the right direction. Any business is like that. So if like you want to get more revenue, you should figure out what are the things that can make you more money and what are the things that are holding you in your way from doing that. And you know, what we do at Go Nimbly is we help operations teams, the companies that are running companies, or the teams that are running companies, we help them prioritize their work. And this is the biggest thing that I think holds them back for a variety of reasons, is just doing unimportant work. I think it was, correct me if anybody knows the right answer, I think it was Roosevelt that did the Matrix. He would prioritize all his work by thinking whether it was urgent or important. If it's not Roosevelt, please put in the chat. Not great at history. But basically any piece of work is either going to be important or not important, and it's either going to be urgent or not urgent. Important and urgent work gets done. You guys know this, right? You have a paper due at 8 p.m. tonight. You get it done. You have a customer that's like giving you a call saying my whatever is broken. You're going to fix that and you're going to work on it. That's the easy stuff. Important or not important urgent work, unfortunately, is also something that's very easy for us to do. Everything that's not important, obviously not important, not urgent, you end up not doing it. It's really easy, but not urgent, important work is the really hard stuff to prioritize. And you have to figure out how to make that urgent. That's typically the stuff that scales your business. That's typically the stuff that doubles your revenue. That's typically your 3-year plan and something you're going after. And that's the hardest thing to prioritize. And teams that get that right are the ones that, you know, grow and become unicorns. So as you're working to be intentional, there's, oh, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I love what you said. I always get confused with that grid. I love the grid, and I get confused with the two that you just mentioned, like what to do after the important and urgent. Can you say that again? I love that.
Let's draw it because, all right, I've never used this. Let's find out if it's any good. 1 and a 2. Nailed it. All right. So important, and then this part's not as great. Not important. And then it's urgent, not urgent, right? And so urgent and important, easy peasy, right? Like you're just going to do this. This is easy. Is somebody's on your neck about it. There's a due date. It's so important. Your customers are mad, or it's like the CEO's telling you this feature is really important, and it gets done. And then you've got not urgent, not important, which is like, cool, you're just not going to do this. These two quadrants kind of help themselves. If you're doing this bottom left quadrant, then you just have terrible intuition, and like, we got to work on that. But typically that's pretty easy. So the not urgent, important work is that, well, actually, let me try here. Not important, urgent work. You end up doing this too. I'm going to do checkbox instead of heart. You end up doing this. It may not be the most important, but it's typically like maybe one customer is like super needy and, you know, calls you all the time, but you know, it's like not that big of a deal. Maybe they're not an important client. Maybe in fact, you should think about firing them. So you want to try to remove this work from your life. Like, how do you make it not urgent? How do you actually demote this into not urgent or make it important? So maybe it creates a feature that more customers can use, or maybe you can turn that into a system that makes more sense. But if you're spending a lot of time here, there's some problem that you need to go for. And then this one, not urgent and important work, you have to figure out how to move it up. I'm sorry. This one. You want to move it into urgency. Ignore this one, I can't delete it. So you want to figure out how to make, it was this way. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to do 3 arrows. It goes like this, okay? Tons of arrows, but we're going from not urgent to urgent. So what you want to do is try to create urgency on not important stuff. So I'll give you an example. There's a product that I've been wanting to do for a while for our services company. And I've been wanting to create an assessment. So it would be like, let's go to a company and assess how you're doing. I know it's a really great product. I know companies need it. I know that it can create a lot more volume of opportunities for us because it's faster to sell and it has really great marketability, but there's no urgency, right? I don't have any customer asking for it right now. It would have to be like creating that urgency. My business is running just fine. I have all these other like issues that, you know, I have to deal with. And so what I did is I found a customer that vaguely asked about it. And I made my not urgent work urgent by being like, hey, I've got a new product I'm going to pitch you next week. So I created urgency on something that didn't have urgency. That's important. Like the way that I can make things urgent is by creating due dates or by having a customer that I'm pitching to. And I'm able to kind of do that. And so again, that's hacking my little lizard brain and trying to figure out how to create urgency so that I actually focus on the important stuff. Does that make sense? Good. Did the arrow just totally mess everyone up, or are we all right?
So helpful. I also love the emojis that you chose. That's also like very clear for my brain.
Good. You're a visual learner. It's good to know about yourself. Cool. All right. Let me go back to my sweet slides. Okay, let's me share. It's not coming up. One sec, let me reshare. It wants me to share my whole screen and I don't want pop-ups. I love you guys, but I don't want you to know everything about me. So there we go. Cool. All right, so then, you know, the whole concept here is to be intentional about the work that you do, intentional about where you focus your time, your energy, etc. And so, you know, this is basically the 3 levels that you get to, all right? And this is an intuition triangle. So basically, or like an intentionality triangle. There's many versions of this that you can find, but ultimately where you spend your time is going to come from 3 places. The first one's intuition. So it's going to be like, I feel like I have to do this, or I believe that there's a gap here. I believe this is a good place to spend my time. We do a lot of that, right? You get ready for a day at work or for school or for whatever, and you just start working on something. You weren't like putting down exactly, you wouldn't create a list first and decide this is the most important thing I have to do. I'll do that first. Your intuition kind of just drives you to do that. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Think about it differently than like, I don't feel like doing X, I'm going to do Y. Just think about like what thing you're like, oh, I have to do X, and you start doing that. Then there's your experience base. And that's when you can do things like, I've done this project at this company, so I'm going to do it over here. Or this worked really well last time, I'm going to apply it again. So this is about taking past experiences and just applying those again because you believe you're going to get results also. And then at the tippy top of why you should do something, we call it customer based. But really the idea is because you truly understand that there's a big gap and it's going to have a big effect. And so this is the most intentional of ways of deciding on what to work on. Typically you've done some research, which I'm going to get into. So it's either data driven, or you've done all the interviews you guys did or something I'm going to talk about. You've done a lot of interviews and you've really identified that this is a problem and I'm going to tackle it. So that's the most intentional of all. All of these, you could end up doing the same work. Your intuition could tell you the same thing. But what we want to do is when you have that intuition or when you have that idea from like your past experience, that you try to map it to make sure that it's really important, that there really is going to be a revenue effect, or that there really is going to be something great that you're doing for your customer, that it's really helping you build your business. And even when it comes from intuition, can you get yourself to ask, like, why am I doing this? Is it important? Is it the most important thing? And start to do that work first. And when you're there, there's really 2 ways of, understanding. And I'm going to take this viewpoint of like, really what matters is a great customer experience. What's going to matter for your product, to James's point, what's going to make something sticky, what's going to make it easy to sell is everything having a great customer experience, all the way from the first time they hear about your product to when they buy it, to as they're adopting it, to when they have to buy it again, or when they're recommending it. We're trying to create that most seamless experience. And that's a big methodology that Go Nimbly believes in, is you fix that, you'll make money. Now you still need a great model. You still need to make sure that your numbers are going to match up, but this is the way that we get our customers to spend more money. And when you're retroactive, when you're trying to find those gaps, you're looking at your data. So you're looking at past data, you're looking at trends, you're trying to find those kinds of trends, yeah. When you're proactive, which is one thing that you guys did when you went out and interviewed everybody, you're trying to put yourself in the customer's shoes, get as close to them as possible to identify like, what is my existing buying experience and how can I make it better? So with retroactive, honestly, you guys are going to struggle at the beginning of your business with this. All right, you're going to sit in proactive most of the time when you're starting out because you just don't have that history, right? You don't have buying trends, you don't have adoption trends yet. And so it's actually really difficult at the beginning of your journey to be very analytical. A lot of what James was showing you guys is the power of back of the napkin math, right? It's like, okay, if it's $20 and I can do 3 dogs and this is my cost, this is where I'm at. You're going to have to do a lot more assumptions in order to do this. Eventually, as you gather more data, and my advice is get data as early as you can when you're doing this. But as you're getting more data, you're going to be able to do this. But for the most part, you guys are going to sit in proactive gap identification. So again, you're going to put yourself in your customer's shoes as often as you can. You're going to focus whenever you can at like getting as close to your customer, and not feeling like you can call customers, you can interview them. And it's so surprising to me at how many companies we consult with where I can talk to a team and they haven't talked to a customer maybe ever or in the past year. So, you're making these decisions about your customer experience and you never talk to them. And I would encourage you guys to have a goal of like at least monthly having one customer conversation, because they are very fruitful. So I'm going to get into a little design thinking framework, but let me pause there and do a little kind of tiny recap before I explain this slide. All you guys have the power to do as you build your business is invest your time in the right space. Like that's really the power you have, is where do I put my time? And you have to figure out where that important work is. And then the tools I'm giving you around proactive gap identification is about really understanding like, what is my biggest gap in order to get to where I want to get. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about how do you know what a gap is? How do you know when to identify it? But that's really the thing that we're trying to get at, is where do I spend my time? So this is, have any of you guys, the ones that I can see on screen, or maybe if everybody does an emoji, has anybody done design thinking classes or a design thinking approach? You guys spend time with this? Is this familiar, this framework of known knowns and known unknowns? Can I get a thumbs up if yes? Well, a couple of you. Awesome. So for some of you, this might be repetition, but I actually find this framework can be confusing. So I don't think it's a bad thing for us to go through it again. The takeaway for me is spend time in the problem space. Don't be afraid of spending time in the problem space. I find that as you scale your company and your team, many of you have done either team projects or in your jobs beforehand. Humans are hard. Humans are hard. Working with humans is hard. Everybody's very intuition driven. It's why I showed you that. And that can actually cause you to prioritize the wrong work, because you'll say things like, this is the problem, or I know what we can do. And we're not willing to kind of spend time to really understand, do we know the source of the problem? Do we really understand the space? And you really have to sit there. So whenever you've got an area, a problem, or an issue that you think you need to solve, there's 4 types of problems, 4 types of gaps. So the first and easiest one is your known knowns. These are really your facts. I have a problem with X. This is really the source of it. You understand it fully. And it's just about like, what work are we going to do to fix it? That's very easy. We basically want to bring everything to the top right quadrant. So everything that we, research, all of our intuition, all of our hypothesis, we're trying to do the work to bring it into facts. The other really easy one is this kind of unknown unknown, which is discovery. don't even worry about it. Like they will come up as you do research, as you build your business. Your unknown unknowns will turn into something else, but it's very difficult unless you just do kind of open discovery. You don't know what you're looking for, so there's not a lot of planning that you can do there. And then there's the two that you're going to deal with all the time. So a known unknown is typically you know what's going on, you know that there is a problem, you can see its effect, but you don't know the source and you don't really know what to do. So in this case, what you want to do is form a hypothesis and test that. In the in your unknown known, typically you know what to do. Since I've got very intuition driven, like we have to fix our buying experience. Like we have to fix our checkout experience on our website. It's crap. Like you know what to do, but you can't quite articulate or understand why it's broken. And in that case, you have to do like a lot more research and discovery to understand like what is actually going wrong. And so in that one, you know what to do, but you don't really know the source. In your known unknowns, you know that there is a problem, but you don't really know what to do. So you're doing kind of more research. So one of them is very much like a hypothesis based. The other one is, you know, intuition, you're driving. The whole point is to get it into facts. So you want to do enough research, enough base jumping to, you know, turn that into some gaps. I'm sorry, into some facts. And that's what we call durability testing. So this is other methodologies call it stress testing. You guys doing interviews with your customer is a form of that. Ideally, you guys would have had a hypothesis, things that you were researching, gaps you didn't know about. One of the questions is, will anybody buy my product? That's a fine, you know, question that you just don't have the answer to, and you do a bunch of questions around it. But there's a lot of forms of durability tests that you can do. It doesn't have to be just surveys. So there's this concept of ride-alongs. It could be with your customers. It could be with someone in your business. It could be with competitors if you can. It doesn't really matter as you grow a team. It could be with your sales team, someone that's selling, with your marketing team, anybody in the business that you want to learn with. And typically you want to ask them the same kind of questions and gain insights from it. Try to identify either trends or disprove your hypothesis. Another idea is a competitive analysis. Do not be afraid to secret shop your competitors. There is so much power in going onto a similar company. Doesn't even necessarily have to be a competitor, similar industry, similar model. If you can even do it tangentially, but go on their website, go see what the experience is, go on their little bots and do some chat, submit a fake form and see if they call you or what kind of content. If you can really secret shop them all the way through, by all means do it. It can be hard, especially if you have a long sales cycle, but go ahead and do it and find out what they're doing well, find out what that delta is between you and them. Another one that you can do is just map it out. Get some key people that understand the industry, understand your product, just your team, and go ahead and map, you know, left to right, all the way through how somebody buys. What are they doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling through each of those stages? Where is the most frustration? Where's the most friction? You know, what makes it hard for them to buy? Try to figure out like what areas of friction are there that I can remove. So what I want you guys to do is break out into groups. Carl, if you could help me with this, I don't know if you want them to go into their own teams or if it's
I was thinking what might be fun if we break you out into random groups, and that way you can actually, it serves multiple purposes. You're talking to people outside your comfort zone, which is wonderful for your pitching skills, your collaboration skills, and also you get to know each other, your peers a little bit better, so that you guys can work together in the future possibly.
Cool, I love it.
Yeah, Famika, are we ready to do the breakout rooms? Jen, we'll just wait for your go ahead, and Famika is going to facilitate that.
Awesome. So basically all I want you guys to do is get in your group, maybe give yourselves like 2 minutes at the top of the group to think. Sometimes we go right into brainstorming or conversation and then you end up talking about a thing that doesn't matter. So again, important. And really think about what is an area that you're fuzzy about. about either your product, your buying experience, how you're going to take it to market. What is that thing that you are just like, I don't know the answer to this? And then bring it to the group and see if the group can come up with really easy, fast tests that you can do. One of the things I didn't mention on durability testing, but like, don't boil the ocean. Like, what is a one or two small tactical things that you can start to get enough information to make that, you know, known unknown into a known?
Jen, when we're breaking out into the rooms, do you mind putting into the chat the questions, the prompts?
100%.
That'd be so. Thank you.
There'll be 5 breakout rooms, and in each breakout room there'll be 4 to 5 participants. And we can call them back once we like close them and everything.
Yeah, so about 1:50, let's have everybody back. So 15-minute exercise.
Got it.
All right, let's do it. All right, Carl, I sent it to everyone here, but let me know how I can send it to the breakout rooms themselves. Oh, broad.
Are we all going into breakout rooms?
You guys don't need to. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
actually
invited to
it's
one.
like a safer space for other people to talk without sometimes.
Oh yeah, so I guess if we take ourselves out, then some rooms have just like 3 people.
Yeah.
I know some people are
Oh,
over.
one person.
Is Ofer with us? Okay.
Oh, he just left.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, if you need to
Right.
move people around.
That was great, Jen.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That was exactly right. Like what we were talking about when we're emailing back and forth, like exactly what they need, because they're really starting at the basics.
Yeah. Good.
It's
Glad
awesome.
it's helpful.
And I think
It's
it
like
was Eisenhower with the known
Eisenhower?
unknown
What did I
method.
say?
Yeah.
Roosevelt? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's totally Eisenhower.
Freaking Eisenhower. What are you gonna do?
I'm trying to see if like people can visit other rooms. I know like professors sometimes do that.
We can.
We can
Oh,
pop
we-
in and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a chance to get a glass of water and go to the bathroom and be back at 1:50. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I might do that too.
Okay, great.
I'll be right back. Gonna go to the bathroom.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Sounds good.
Not allowed.
See you then. Great stuff, man.
It's good. It is good.
Yeah.
Do you need
So
to be recording while we're here? No.